going to be accepted, such as Myanmar, your Sri Lanka, Philippines. So that also CDSO is working on, so that the IP products are also accepted in those countries. So today, as you know, that regulated markets, what we have in mind is USA, Europe, Japan, Australia, South Africa, and Brazil. Along with these, other countries are also having their own way of approving the products, like Ethiopia or your South African other countries. They all come for inspection, they do all the due diligence, and then only approve the products for submission or for their markets. So we have to apply as per the dossier for any registration of the product, and the format is regional administrative information, not the part of CTD. Information, not the part of CTD. This is echoing. This is echoing.
इसलिए सबके माइक आप म्यूट कर दीजिए, सर का छोड़ के बस.
Okay, so then we go to module 2, which is CTD table of contents.
लीजिए सर का माइक.
Yeah, now it is unmuted. Okay. So then quality overall summary, that is called QOS. Then non-clinical overview, non-clinical summaries, clinical overview and clinical summary. Module 3 is again quality. Module 4 is non-clinical study reports, and module 5 is the clinical study report. We can have a separate session on what all these modules have and what all information are required on in each of the module. In research and development, we are concerned more with the module 3, which deals with the clinical, pharmaceutical and biological information of the chemical active substance and biological medicinal product. As we will be outsourcing the API from the DMF source, the body of the data of the drug substance is not to be provided by us. If we are resourcing the material from a DMF folder, then that DMF is already available with the regulatory agency, so that information need not be added with your dossier. But if it is not a DMF folder, then we have to include and get that inspected, or depending on the requirement of that particular country. So description and composition of the drug product. Description of the drug product and its composition should be provided. Description, composition is the list of all components of the drug dosage form and their amount as per the unit basis, including overages if any, and the function of each of the component and their reference to the quality standards with respect to pharmacopoeial specification, that is USP or Pharma Europe or BP or JP or whatever. IP is, as you see here, IP is not accepted in exports. Description of accompanying ingredients has special trying of containers and closure used for the dosage form. Primary, this is the primary container closure for the dosage form wherein the products are being packed, and if there is any reconstitution material to be given along with the dosage form, as we get with the dry powder injection, you get WFI along with sterile WFI. So sterile WFI reconstitute and then the injection is given to the patient. Pharmaceutical development studies need to be routinely carried out to establish that type of dosage form selected and the formulation proposed are satisfactory for the purpose specified in its application. They also aim to identify those formulation and processing aspects that are crucial for the batch reproducibility and therefore need to be monitored routinely. Here, what I would like to underline is that the consistency of the product is very important, batch to batch. If today we are manufacturing 100 batches in a year for a product supplying to country X, and now if those 100 products behave differently, then the consistency and effectiveness or efficacy of the drug product is not there. Sometimes you might have felt, and I give this example many times, that normally when there is a headache we take Disprin. Many of you or all of us. Now, sometimes it is effective and you say that, yes, my headache has gone. But sometimes it happens so that you take 2 Disprin, 3 Disprin, still your headache is not going. So either there could be some other complication or drug itself is not effective. So it is not giving the desired effect. So therefore the consistency is very important with respect to quality and its efficacy when the number of batches are manufactured and supplied. So development starts from the information gathering. First you have to have whatever you are targeting. So first you should go for the information gathering. You should have all the related information with respect to the drug, its formulation, its patent, where it is used, what for it is used, all those things. And now the literature and the search is very easily available on the net. So very easily you can have those information, but that information is to be analyzed properly so that you get the right information and you go towards the right direction rather than going back and forth on the same issue. Where from you can get the literature? One is the pharmacopoeia, then you have PDR, then patent search or Orange Book, journals, summary basis of approved from FDA or other regulatory agencies, information regarding references listed in drug and innovators, and any other relevant literature. If you have, you can have the information available for the product or the target dosage form which you are thinking of developing. Then comes the procurement, that the requisition for the material or the availability of the material, mainly the API, the excipients or non-actives, and the RLD or the innovator product. When you go to the industry, you are developing a product which is to be compared with the innovator's product. It is not that I have developed or we have developed here and it has to be shown as equivalent to the innovator's product. So to establish that equivalency, you have to check that your product is equivalent of the innovator's product or better than the innovator's product. Then what are the requirements? Those things are to be identified, that is identification of formulation requirement, equipment, formulation development, dyes, punches, analytical equipment, reference standard and impurity, etc. And all these should be procured and made available in advance. So all these planning, this is all called the planning part of it, what you are trying to do. Then the study starts. This what we have done, we have seen in the previous slide was up to the planning and gathering the information. But now the actual development part starts. So first is the pre-formulation studies, which Dr. Jitendra Banveer wanted me to touch upon. First thing is the compatibility, whether your active substance and excipients are compatible with each other or not. If there is any reaction or any destabilization is taking place, then that active ingredient and the selection of the excipient is not the correct one. Then active substance and active substance. If it has a fixed dosage form or there are two different APIs are going into one formulation, then the one API should be compatible with the other API. If they are not compatible, again the stability will be issue. And one excipient to the other excipient, that is also required to be established, that the excipients also don't interact, and there is no problem with respect to the stability of the product. So there are three things, that is active versus active, and excipient versus excipient. So all three kinds of compatibility studies are to be done. Then comes physiochemical characteristics, that is solubility studies of the product, water content, that is also important with respect to stability, because high water content can lead to microbial growth, can lead to the instability of the API or the product. Particle size, as you know, is a very important thing which needs to be understood, because small change in the particle size can impact on your DT, on your dissolution and overall absorption of the product. So that gives you the consistency of the product, efficacy also. If the dissolution in vitro is not right or within the specification, then in vivo problems will be there and the efficacy of the product will get challenged. Then also the crystal properties and polymorphism, that is equally important. One polymorph is active, other polymorph is inactive, or it is soluble or insoluble in the gastric juice or in the intestine. pH dependency solubility is also a challenge. Some drugs which are soluble in a certain pH or certain range of pH, and others are not soluble in that pH range. And also the pH is a major factor for the stability of the product, mainly in case of the liquid products. Then formulation development, the therapeutic activity, posology, route of administration, active substance, and the proposed usage of the product should be taken into consideration while designing the formulation of the product. So what is the product? What is the age group we are targeting, whether it is infants or childs or adults, or those who are bedridden and cannot take that because of the age factor. So what will be the dosage form? What will be the taste? There are so many factors which are important to be considered while targeting a product for development. So, and what is the route of administration? So there are so many factors which one should consider while selecting a formulation or a product and its dosage form to be delivered to the patient. The development of products for regulated market requires decision choosing the availability of reference standard, active material, source supply, excipients, container closure system, comparative dissolution procedures, then bioequivalence to the RLD, that is the reference product or the reference listed drug. Here I'll just give two examples overall, which to make you understand. What we're talking about the excipients or the compatibility of the excipient. So we had a product in the market and which was running very well. But after some time, it happened so because of some cost reasons, we changed the excipient of in the product because of the cost. Company wanted to have better margin on the profits, so they decided to reduce, because it is the excipient, it is and meeting the specification also. Now, when that excipient was used, slowly the market complaint started coming, and that was in cream. So the complaint was related to the grittiness. When the person applies it on the skin, there was some friction, and it is called the grittiness, which is a undesirable quality thing, right? So therefore, and when we investigated it, we found that the change of the source of the excipient only, although meeting the specification, has led to such kind of problem. So the excipient compatibility and what you select in the beginning should not be changed, because what change is going to impact how and when is not known. You cannot predict it till you wait for such a long time, say 1.5 years of stability or 2 years of stability. But nobody has time to wait for that. Second is the container closure system. Container closure system plays a very important role for any formulation to be available in the market for a longer period. What happens if the container is not compatible or is not protecting the product? Then it becomes a problem for the product on aging. The product may get unstable, or there could be some fungal growth, could be a microbial growth, could be any moisture uptake or whatever. So there could be many other things which can happen if the container closure is not properly selected. Now, when we come to pharmaceutical development, in case of API, so the analytical profile of the API, impurity profile of the API, and approved supplier must be selected for the development part. A specification of the API, once it is selected, it has to be remain same, and there should not be any batch to batch variability, and even the R&D should not be allowed to change the specification once it is agreed. Then comes the vendor. Where from you are getting that material becomes very important for the consistency of the quality of the API what you are getting. And also the consistency of supply. Because today it should not happen that because of one reason or the other, the API source has got shut down, as it happened in China last three to 4 months back. So there were no supplies. So whatever stocks were available only were used in India. However, when they are now restarting and now they are inventing and supplying again. So generic product do not necessarily need to contain all the non-actives and ingredients at the same quantities as the RLD, but the inactive ingredients guide, we have to refer the guide for that, and accordingly we have to, because those things are not coming on the label claim, right? The quantity and the dosage and the active ingredients, or those which are pharmacologically active, they are all listed on the label. So you, from there you can come to know from the sample itself that this much has been added. But how and what about the excipients or the non-active material which has been added, that is not known, and therefore we have to tweak to make the equivalent formulation. As I said, that the container closure system shall be similar to the material of composition as the RLD. The degree of the product protection by the container liner closure system must prevent physical, chemical, and microbial challenge on storage and during customer usage. So we have to target the customer, not what we have developed and did the stability for 6 months or 1 year or so. So one has to be very clear that the product has to reach to the customer, and customer is going to use it for another 24 months. He may open, close it, may not close it properly, etc., etc. There could be hundreds of variables which are involved into that, and therefore our product has to be like that, our system has to be like that, our container closure has to be like that, that there is no impact of adverse condition on the product. Then comes the evaluation of the RLD with respect to size, shape, weight, color, hardness, viscosity, disintegration time, friability, etc. Chemical and instrumental evaluation like acid, dissolution, impurity profile, content uniformity. All these things are pharmaceutical tests, what all you know very well. Excipient listed on the package insert of RLD must be checked with IIG, and their maximum approved limit must be used and should be kept in mind during the development study. Reverse engineering, that is the quantitative determination of the amount and the inactive ingredient, needs to be done. Preferably 3 lots of the RLD in all the strength packs should be evaluated. It should not be only 1 lot you have evaluated, and if it is found okay, you say my product is okay. If you do 1, then it gives you a confidence. But if you do 3, then it validates that yes, my product is equivalent of the RLD. After thorough evaluation of the RLD, prototype development of the product shall be undertaken, which emphasize on the following parameters. All the tests which are mandatory in the compendia, that is pharmacopoeia, shall be complied with. That is disintegration time, friability, uniformity of weight, uniformity of content, that is the homogeneity, etc. So all these pharmacopoeial tests are basically required to be met. Dissolution, in addition to compendial requirement, the product shall match the multi-point dissolution with respect to RLD in different media like 0.1 NaCl, 0.01 HCl, then water, pH 4.5, 5.5, 6.8, 7.4, etc., depending on the life cycle and the dosage form and the intention or the route of administration. Use of surfactants in the media shall be properly justified. Many drugs which are not soluble in water, the surfactants are used to increase the solubility of the product. So that what amount should be used, like SLS we are using as a surfactant for many of the products. Then in vitro, in vivo correlation is required so that you know that your product is equivalent of the innovator products, and show the modified release product if required. Then comes the effect of pH. As you know that the effect of pH of the finished product of the stability of API shall be properly addressed. This is especially relevant in case of liquid and semi-solid products. So pH is highly important in case of liquid products as well as semi-solid product. And if there is change in the pH with aging, then the product stability will get challenged. So this helps in defining the limits of pH in the finished product and the specifications. Many of the products we know that we have to add antimicrobial products or the preservatives, and that needs to be justified. The quantity needs to be justified, why we are adding and how we are adding, and also the quantity. The product antimicrobial preservative system is expected to comply with level A criteria. The content of preservative shall be routinely monitored during stability study. So in the stability study, we should not only monitor the assay or dissolution of the product, but also monitor the efficacy of the preservative which we have added, like methylparaben or methylparaben. We are adding as a preservative normally in pharmaceutical dosage forms. So what is the content of this? Whether it is also deteriorating. If it is deteriorating fast, then your product may not contain any preservative towards the end of the shelf life. So then it becomes a challenge. So hence my request would be that if, whatever stability you are doing, should contain this requirement of content of the preservative added into the formulation. Preservative efficacy test during development studies needs to be carried out and at different levels of the content of the preservative. Antioxidants are degrading, therefore the manufacturing or the shelf life of the product of the antioxidants, that also needs to be monitored. Compatibility with other products. This is utmost relevance in case of injectable products where are diluted prior to the IV fluids like dextrose, saline, etc. You might have seen that when in the hospital, etc., when they put the injection directly into dextrose or saline, sometimes a precipitation takes place. So that is what is the incompatibility of the product with the diluent. So that for wherever the dilution is being done, whether it is water or dextrose or whatever, that compatibility needs to be established before the administration or the development is done. Particle size, as we have already discussed, that the particle size very important in case of formulation of poorly soluble drugs, drug powder inhalations, suspensions, your MR triplets, etc. And similar, the effect of globule size in case of emulsion has a very important role to play when it is administered, because it impacts the efficacy of the product when it is administered to the patient. Other parameters which are required to be seen is or evaluated are the powder flow analysis in case of solid dosage form. How the powder flows, whether it flows freely or it is fines are more or the granules are high, how it flows in different equipment. It is very important because that needs to be studied. Bulk density, tap density of the blend to be granulated or filled into the capsule, granules of tablet compression. So these are the parameters which one should study and take cognizance of this, track it and correct it to make a better formulation.
Sir, sorry to interrupt. The session is about to end in 6 minutes. So
6 minutes. Okay, I'll go fast now. Okay.
We can have some questions also.
Yeah. So other parameters are aqueous, non-aqueous, granulation, compaction, etc. All these things, those are very important, and those important parameters should be considered during development. Container closure system we have already discussed. There should not be any leaching and absorption or any adverse impact on the packing material should be there on the product. Then finally we go for the accelerated stability of the development batches, and then we start doing in different pack size, different packaging. We do the stability, accelerated stability, and the long-term stability, and that depends on the ICH guideline at different zones. So we have to establish which is the best container closure system wherein the product can do this, can be there stable up to its shelf life, whatever has been provided on the label. Photo stability is also important. Many products are photosensitive, and therefore photo stability needs to be done. Manufacturing process requires the study of critical process parameters. All those parameters which can impact the process or the product quality needs to be studied and should be documented and should be controlled during manufacturing, and to maintain the consistency of the product batch to batch. Those things are like mixing time, RPM, drying time, temperature, time, again effect of wet mixing, granule, water content, all those things are the parameters. Then blending time, rate of addition, temperature, healing temperature, all these very important things which are important. You can go through my presentation and you can read through once again. So now what are the do's and don'ts? This is the last 2-3 slides I am presenting to ensure that the batch lots of active ingredients are commercial batches. Do obtain the drug active analytical profile. Do request and obtain the drug active physical specification on particle size, etc. Get analytical batch analysis reports of 6 to 10 batches so as to have confidence on the consistency. Then all SOPs or the how to proceed should be there in place. So then how to mix, how to blend, how to control the time, and how to control the flow of the material, and all those which or anything which can be a variability during process or development needs to be studied. And as I said in the beginning, that the negative study should be performed. Say for example, last example I am giving, then I'll give it to for the question and answer. Say if a product is stable between 4 to 6 pH. Now, what happens when it is at 3 and what happens when it is at 8 pH? So, such a study should be done to know the effect of the change of pH. So, what is going to happen if the pH changes? That needs to be understood properly and documented so that when you study or make the study, when you document, then everything is written over there and you know the impact of the change, and it becomes whether it is a critical process parameter or not a critical process parameter, you can establish from there. So thank you very much for the patience listening, and now it is over for questioning.
Thank you very much, sir. It was really very interactive session as such. And we are running very short of time, only or less than 2 minutes are left. I would ask all the participants, those who have got any questions, to ask to the sir over here. So please ask, and I would like to thank you officially, sir, for having the session here right now. So any question if been to be asked, sir? My question,
Dr. Sukhwant Singh, one question, sir.
What is the difference with the regulated and non-regulated markets?
What is happening is that in regulated market, there are all those things which I discussed are to be established and presented to the regulatory agency, and they review everything. In India, it is not so critical. We have to just apply for the license and give the reference of another product of similar nature, and you get the license.
Okay.
But in another country, it is not like that. Now in India also, we are going ahead and we will have the same kind of policy or the procedure, so that you have to submit everything to the regulators, they review, and then they will come up with the queries, question, you have to answer those, supplement with the data, and then only you will get the license and all that.
Thanks, sir.
Another, somebody was there.
Sir, I am Dr. Nishi Prakash Jain asking one question. That R&D plays an important role in formulation development. In our institutions, how we can get the R&Ds?
Sir, can we take this question in next session, sir? There is only less than 1 minute left.
Few seconds
here,
left.
Dr. Saab, what we can do, and Dr. Banvi